So today we're going to create a really cool Martian feeling base for your miniatures. We've got some slate chips here and we're going to grab some super glue and we'll chuck a blob of that down on the base and just enough to work with. I've grabbed some tweezers here because tweezers make it really easy when you're working with super glue. Stops it from getting all over your fingers. So just dip your slate chip in the super glue and then place it where you want it to sit on the base. This is going to create some verticality to your base and make it not feel so flat and textureless. So just grab a couple, place them around, make sure you've left enough room in the middle for your miniature to stand on, and we'll let that dry. It'll only take a minute or two for it to be dry before we can move on to the next step. We've left the super glue for a couple of minutes to dry, and we're going to grab some astrogranite texture. We've got our texture spreading tool, and we're just going to take a good dollop of that out of the lid of the pot. We're going to place it down on our base. We're going to start then just roughly pressing it around. Don't just smear it like a paintbrush. Actually bounce that tool up and down and create some textures in it, create some interest while you're spreading out your texture paint. The other thing to think about here too, we're going to use a secondary texture paste just to add a little bit more to this base so it's not quite so plain. So what you want to do is allow some areas to remain untextured at the moment. Start spreading that around now, leave those areas, and we'll move straight on to the next step. So with our astrogranite now down, we're going to grab some Martian iron earth and we're going to fill in the area we left behind. So grab a decent dollop of this stuff. It is a cracking effect, so the thicker, the better. You'll get bigger cracks, you'll get a better effect out of it. Spread that around that area. Now, don't be afraid to go on to your astrogranite. We are working wet on wet. This creates a fantastic, natural looking blend between the two textures. Additionally, I will also go through and add a couple of bits on top of that wet astrogranite, and that'll just create a little bit more interest and uniqueness to your base. So let's go ahead and do that now, and then we can set this aside to dry for a few hours. So we've left it a couple of hours to dry, and the effect is really cool and unique. There is a bit of an issue with the Martian iron earth, however, because it is a cracking paint. Sometimes it can lose adhesion to the surface. What I like to do here, I like to get, say, a brush full of PVA, not a fully loaded brush like you're pulling paint out, just enough to wet the bristles, and then a few brush loads of water just to water it down and thin it down. All we're doing is using this to ensure that it is adhered to the base and won't flake off while we're painting it or doing whatever other things we've got to do to this base. So with the PVA now dry, we've taken it outside and actually primed it in Chaos Black. You can prime it in whatever color you want, whatever color your miniatures are primed in, but just get a coat of paint on there just to seal it up and prime it up. What I'm doing now, I've grabbed some Doomball Brown and we're going to just layer this all over the base. Because I'm using a dark base coat, I'm going to give this 2 good coats of it. Maybe if you're using a lighter color like a grey seer or a Wraithbone, you may only require 1, just as long as it's really well covered and nice and even. So with our Doomball Brown now dry, we're going to grab some paper towel, a really good Drybrush, and some Tuscarora fur. We're going to put our paint on the brush, wipe most of it off on that paper towel, and then we're slowly going to build up the layers of our Drybrush. So here we're going up and down, we're going in circles. We want to just pick up all that raised area and really emphasize that detail so it's really easy to identify when you look at it. If you need to go over it a couple of times, that's perfectly okay. If you want to just keep working around the base, it is a dry brush. It only takes a couple of seconds to dry. So build that up to your taste, as bright or as dull as you want it, but just make sure we're picking up all those high areas. So I've wiped all the excess paint off my brush from our Tuscarora fur, And I'm going to grab a little bit of Wraithbone here. I'm not washing the brush out. I'm just going straight in, and then I'm going to work it into the bristles. This will create sort of a light color versus the Tuscarora fur, but still be in that same family. So this will really just emphasize and pick up those really, really high bits. Make sure we stay very, very light with this coat. We're just using this to add more emphasis. I've gone and given my brush a wash out now. We've dried it out. We've got it ready to go into a dry brush again. And this time we're going to grab some pure Wraithbone. Now this is going to be super, super light. We're going to wipe 90% off. And then once we've got it to a point where we can't see any more paint coming off on the paper towel, use the back of your hand and wipe a bit more off. We just want to pick up the highest points here to really create some depth and give this a real lift, like the light is hitting the edge of the soil. Go around now and just sparingly add this to the highest points of texture on your base. We just have one more step left, and that is to clean up the rim of the base. Now I've done mine in a Baden black. I really like that black banding around the base, but that might not be to your preference. If that's the case, go back and grab some Doomball brown and just paint the rim in with the Doomball brown to match the top. Once this is done, that's it. You're ready to bring your model across and stick it on top of your finished base. As you can see, this is a really super simple way to create a detailed Martian looking base that really emphasizes the details of your models. But you can use this for anything, maybe a Necromunda ash waste base even. You can use these skills with your own colors to create an awesome looking base like this. But that's it for this one. We'll see you all in the next video. Till then, have a good one, guys.